has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast. Real quick, don't forget to get the SportsGrid app on iOS or Android. It's free, and you're going to love it. You can watch the network, listen to the network. It's got in-game odds, it's got everything. You're going to love it. Get it and download it. You are going to be styling with this. Follow your favorite hosts. You get it all on the SportsGrid app. Of course, we're streaming now on X. Just go to SportsGrid-Live, and you can see us streaming on X. Get the Ferrall, Coast to Coast, and Ferrall on a Bench podcast on iTunes. Don't forget, all next week, we are live from Nolans at Super Bowl 59. We'll be broadcasting the 3rd through the 7th, Monday to Friday, and it's going to be fantastic. We'll be at the Radio Row at the Convention Center. And don't forget tonight, you got a lot going on SportsGrid. I'll give you that later in terms of the shows that are going to be on tonight on the TV side and the radio side. But we got Kurt Heelan of NBC Sports Now to talk Pro Rack. Kurt, good to see you. You and I were talking about New Orleans. Yeah, I've been there a bunch of times. Yeah, I've been to the Super Bowl there. I saw the Bears beat the Patriots there in 85. Wow. I also saw Indiana, my alma mater, beat Syracuse in 87 on the Keith Smart shot to win the national championship. Bob Knight's third. So I have been there multiple times. I've done my show there multiple times over the years. And I've rocked New Orleans hard, believe me, you. It's good to see you. I want to start with this. What was your initial reaction when you saw the talk of a 10-minute quarter?
I rolled my eyes. I'm like, and I think the headline of the story I wrote was like, really, Adam? Really? Hey, look, I genuinely believe this was him floating a trial balloon that I was told later wasn't really anything with it. It's something Adam likes that wasn't terribly popular within the league office even, but Adam floated it out there, and I know I wrote something about it. A bunch of media members did, but beyond us, forget us. Michael Malone ripped it. A couple other coaches ripped it. A couple players ripped it. Like, nobody likes this idea. So hopefully that burst the trial balloon and we're dead, because, Scott, I don't like messing. Like, pitch clock is one thing, but you're now changing the fundamental essence of the game. Like you're it's not a pitch clock. It's making it a 7-inning game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I thought it was, relatively ridiculous. I have to ask you this question. So today we ran a clip of Zion talking about blame them, blame the Pelicans. They're the ones that are saying I can't play back to back. I work for them. They call the shots. Now, we know he's been injured a lot, and we know how young he is. But I said, I threw this salvo out there. I said today that that's the beginning of the end of him in New Orleans. He now is calling out his, superiors, frankly, and the management and the team, the organization, calling them out saying, you got a problem with me not playing back-to-back? Talk to them. And that's like saying, my bosses are idiots. And how many people get away with that?
Yeah. I will say this one thing in his defense. We climb on players all the time for load management. 90% of the time, it actually is the team that's like, hey, I don't trust, hey, Kawhi, you're not going to play as much. He's still on a minutes limit. It's usually the team that comes in harder and is more protective of its investment, frankly, than the player. That said, Zion's a different case, right? Because let's just say, Scott, as a guy who has spent a bunch of time in New Orleans, and if I had to spend a week there like you're going to, I'd probably come back 15 pounds heavier. Yes. Zion is not the best conditioned athlete we've ever seen in the NBA. And he's maybe been better this year, but he's got to take care of himself. And that's part of the reason you've got to bring him along slowly. I don't think there's anybody out there who looked at that and said, yeah, they should be limiting him. Like, is there anybody who's like, nah, he should totally play more? No, you're 12-36. You're not making the playoffs. Don't push this guy right now and see what happens. Try to get him right for next season and see what happens. That's why their name comes up in a Jimmy Butler trade. I'm like, why? First off, Jimmy's not going to want to go there, but why? What are you going to do with Jimmy Butler the rest of this season?
Well, frankly, I don't care what Jimmy Butler wants. I actually am from the side of the river that says, you know what? I don't care what you want, need, where you want to go, all of your nonsense. Not only do I not want to hear it anymore from him, I think he was throwing games, throwing balls away, shooting air balls, acting like a tool, behaving like a child, all of his demands and nonsense and back and forth with Riley. And you know what's funny is that nothing has progressed. I've been hearing about this guy getting traded now for a month and nothing's happened. And you know what? I did a special today, an hour shoot on Elgin Baylor. And I talked about his brilliant career from high school in D.C. to Idaho to Seattle to the Lakers in Minneapolis to L.A. and to greatness and even running the Clippers and serving in the Army. And I talked about this guy not playing for 2 months and then playing 6 straight games, winning all 6 and averaging 38 and 22, and a real baller. And then I got to deal with these prima donnas now in this day and age that never play. They get paid $200 million. I mean, honestly, we don't recognize the greatness of the past while we sit around and deal with this bullshack.
By the way, Elgin might be maybe one of the most underrated former superstars. Like, he was one of the first guys to play above the rim. Like, nobody was playing above the rim when Elgin was playing above the rim back in the 60s. And I think he's dramatically underrated as a. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, but I think underrated as an all-time great. Look, you were spot on about Butler, by the way, in this sense, particularly this sense. There is no market for him. There is one team that wants him, and they can't figure out how to get him because they got to move Bradley Beal, and Bradley Beal is the one guy who has a worse trade value than Jimmy Butler right now. The Pelicans have talked about it. The Warriors came up, but I was told by a source, like, watch the Warriors to go after Zach LaVine. Like, they want to boost their offense, and Zach's been playing great this year, and that seems more likely and more the direction they're headed than Butler. They're just look, it's not like Butler's agent isn't trying. There's no demand for Jimmy Butler because they're not sure what kind of disruption he might be down the line, and nobody wants to pay him $100 million for a couple of years after this one, which is what he wants.
You know, I saw it today. We did a story today. I always love talking to you. You tell it like it is. I'm talking today about Bogan Bogdanovic. Now they're interested in him, and I'm shooting 61% from the floor in my league. And I'm like, Bogan Bogdanovic. Christ, they've gone from Jimmy Butler to wanting Bogan Bogdanovic. Christ, I shoot the ball better than him. What is going on with these terrible trade ideas? And how unbelievable is it that more people talk about the snubs than the actual guys that make it?
That's the crazy thing about the All-Star snubs is that you're like, and by the way, like, Alperen Şengün is deserving of an All-Star spot.
Of
so
course.
Who are you taking off the list? Who are you taking off the list? Because the problem in the West, and look, I had Şengün in on my list when I did it, but there were 7 reserve spots, and there were 12 deserving guys, maybe 13 deserving guys. Guys are just screwed. Like, there is no good option there. You are going to leave off deserving players no matter what. So it's where you want to draw the line. So, like,
I'm so glad you got through this without coughing. You were going to cough right there, and you held out. That was beautiful. Hey, listen, feel better. You're amazing. You never coughed. I love you. I always love talking rack with Kurt Heelan of NBC. Have a great weekend. Feel better, Kurt.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
One of the weirdest nicknames I've heard in fighting. You know, there's people have some strange nicknames at times, but the Lemon Killer. What do you even make of that? What is that about?
I don't even know what that means, but I'm gonna squeeze him like a lemon on the day we fight, and he's gonna pop.
Only on SportsGrid.
We're going to get rid of all the badness, if you will, over the past few decades for the Raiders and set yourself up for the future. It's a horrible job to take if you expect to win, but it's not a bad paying gig, so go ahead and take it.
With an owner in Mark Davis who has continued to make bad decision after bad decision. Does Pete Carroll leave a culture behind that Joe Brady in 2 to 3 years takes over?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
He did nothing for 5 weeks. So he is becoming his brother. So I don't want to hear about how great TJ Watt is with his 0 playoff wins. And he's the first guy to admit it. He comes right out and says, I've never won a playoff game. I don't matter. All right, at least we all know who the best player on the team is. It's George Pickens. If you don't believe that, well, then screw you too.
Ferrall, coast to coast. Only on SportsGrid.
We'll see if they get McCain back. Kelly Oubre, Yabusele's been good. Caleb Martin's a defensive specialist. Andre Drummond can still give you, almost a double-double at any point. I can't go south on this team. And now you're giving it to me at 2-1 to make the playoffs? To be in the Final 8? Folks, give me the Philadelphia 76ers to make the playoffs at plus 210.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Carver High, let's get real here with it. This is the scientific Carver High question of the day. From a medicinal standpoint, do you believe that 34C got her new ride today? She got her new truck. And then she took my daughter with her 103 scathing fever and the flu. She has failed the flu test. She is carrying the flu into the Ferrall Palatial. I just said to you, I think she was in the new truck. She's given the truck the flu. Like 34C's like, we'll go for a spin in my new truck. I'm not getting in that truck. That truck has the flu. And the house has the flu. Carver High will be the Behringer of all answers. Does the house and the truck now obtain the flu from the young Chopicus?
Sure does. I wouldn't go in that truck if I were you before you leave. I wouldn't go near that. And that's a brand new, there's not even anything else to absorb that in there. That's a brand new truck smell you got that you think is going to mask it. But really, because the truck is so clean and new, that flu is just sticking to the entire front seat of that truck. That's all that it's doing right now. So you got no shot of not catching it in that truck. So, I mean.
No shot. And what about in the house? Mommy has said I should wear a mask. Should I check into a hotel at the the place that all the people pick up chicks and guys at the meat marketplace that has a hotel connection to it? I told you, you go there, you meet women and men, and you go right into the hotel and have relations. Should I check into the relations hotel and avoid the daughter with the flu to go to New Orleans?
If you don't want to get sick, that'd be probably something that you should think about, because this stuff's I've been living with it for 2 weeks here. Living with it. So
but you had it first.
I had it first, but it's still going here. It's still happening all around me. So it takes a long time to get rid of it. Be a long week for you down
I'm
there. I'm
scared to death right now of the conditions I'm under. Maybe I should stay down here in the studio. I might have to
I wouldn't even leave the basement because she don't go down there. She ain't been down there, so you should just stay down there until you gotta leave on Sunday morning.
Stay down here.
I wouldn't even go in here. I wouldn't even go anywhere else in the house.
Mafia's already said he won't even go out with me to dinner on Sunday. He won't even be near me. He said, I'm not having anything to do with you.
I'd be very, very careful over the next few days. All right.
Watch your step.
There's a ton of college rack on the weekend. I want to start with this because obviously Calipari's going back to Kentucky tomorrow night as Arkansas visits Rupp. Before I play Calipari, did you see? And I love Rick Pitino, and he's doing a great job with St. John's.
Yeah.
Did you see the cheesy video that he put out, basically begging Kentucky fans not to boo
Pathetic.
Cal tomorrow night? What the hell was that? What? Who told him to do that?
Well, because he's still got an itch in his pants near his onions for Kentucky. Like, he coached there. So whenever you coach at Kentucky, you still think you matter at Kentucky. Pitino is so far removed from Kentucky. I guarantee you they will boo him tonight. When he plays him. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow they're going to
tomorrow night, yes.
What's the difference? Tomorrow night. They're going to boo him for certain, because he left. He walked out on him because they were giving him the business.
But Cal's fine with that, which makes me, I don't understand why Pitino had to do that. Here's Calipari. He says, I know what I'm getting when I walk into that place tomorrow night.
I look forward to walking in the building and, as an opposing coach, I'm the opposing coach. In my time, I don't remember them ever cheering an opposing coach. So I'm fine. All I know is the fans, they're terrific. They were terrific during our run. They're engaged. And my guess is they're going to be really engaged on Saturday.
Yeah, and they're going to get their ass beat by Kentucky
10.5.
because, well, look,
big number.
Arkansas is awful, okay? They have not had a good year. They don't look good. They're not good. He needs more time. The thing with Cal is he's a really good coach. Let's just calm down here. What happened is he got that job, and all these idiots in Fayetteville think that he should win a national championship in the first season. And he got, a taste of, bringing in some kids that could ball, but he needs at least into year 2-3 before I think you see a significant change in the way things have been at Arkansas. I think he'll win there. I'm certain of it. And I think it takes 2 to 3 years. No one just walks in and just starts. They all think that you hire these coaches and it's automatic. And that's not the way it works. It takes time. Now, I don't deny that Dusty May's done a good job in Ann Arbor with Michigan, but all these people talking about them winning a national title now because they haven't, I think they're tripping. I don't think they're winning a national title. I think they're certainly better. I think they look really good, and I don't think they're even the best team in the Big Ten at all. So it takes time. I think Cal will win in Fayetteville, and the people need to chill out. They've already turned on the football coach. So they are, short fused in Fayetteville. And I think they're, frankly, a little stupid.
So you have that as one of the main events tomorrow night. You have the first Duke, North Carolina game of the year.
That's going to get ugly,
13.5. That could get ugly. UConn, Marquette at Marquette on Saturday night. That's
Marquette's going to beat them.
7.5. Big number for Marquette against UConn.
UConn sucks. They could barely beat DePaul. They were down 14 with 10 minutes to go.
Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, Ole Miss, Providence, St. John's, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Georgia, Alabama. There's a ton of great games on Saturday and Sunday in college rap.
I mean, honestly, you're torturing me. It's so awesome, the games this weekend, that you're literally torturing me right now.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Is this the team this year under TJ Otzelberger that can get Iowa State to the promised land at a Final Four trip?
Auburn is trending towards being the #1 seed in the South. That means first and second round games in Lexington, and then Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games in Atlanta. I have a hard time believing that a team is going to be able to go to Atlanta and beat the Tigers.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I got to tell you, I was really excited last night to hit every single NHL bet that we laid down on Coast to Coast. A great thrill. As you know, Carver High, everyone loves hockey.
Everyone does love hockey, and there's a few things I want to get to you now, and then after Adam and the leftovers, I'll give you tonight's games. Islanders have won 6 in a row. Shut out the Flyers last night, 3-0 in Philadelphia. They are rolling right now. But a tough weekend for them, Scotty. They have the Florida double Saturday, Sunday. They're in Tampa, in Sunrise, both days. I don't know if they get out of this weekend with an 8-game winning streak with those two stops.
No way.
That they're going to have to make. So that could be very tricky for the Isles. Jets beat the Bruins 6-2. Did you see the Flower in Montreal last night? What an unbelievable scene. He gets a shutout. First goalie to get a shutout in the NHL in their teens. He was 19 when he had a first shutout in the NHL, and get a shutout in his 40s, which is what he accomplished last night, FanDuel Sports North.
Final 10 seconds. Gallagher off the stick of Fleury. Rossi has it. And Fleury records a shutout in his last stop in Montreal. Look at this moment.
I have to tell you, he really is something else. Like, this is one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest goalies that has ever played in the NHL. And I mean it. He's got Stanley Cup rings to prove it. And he has done it since he was a young kid till he was an old man. And he's still doing it. Like a 4-0 shutout at the Bell Center against a tough team. The Canadians have been really tough this year. And they got guys that can score. And I just think it's really impressive. I have always loved the Flower. I thought when the Penguins, changed up their goalies and, they didn't go with him in the last 2 Stanley Cups. And I thought that was for me, obviously they won the Cups. I wasn't going to complain. But look how things turned out. He's still playing. The other guy doesn't play anymore. And literally, you think about it, they messed around with him in Pittsburgh, even though he loved it in Pittsburgh. I think his whole career was Pittsburgh. Now, all this other stuff, Chicago, Minnesota, to me has just been stopgap stuff, and it hasn't mattered. But to see him having shutouts in his 40s now at the end is remarkable. He's a Hall of Famer.
Real classy from Montreal, too. Did you see all the players line up and shake his hand after the game? Stuff you really don't ever see. That's how much respect Marc-Andre Fleury has.
And he's a great
in
prankster.
the national.
One of the greatest pranksters of all time.
Prankster.
Like, this guy's got the pranks down to a science.
He does. Sens beat the Caps in overtime. Ovi did score 19 away from Gretzky, despite the fact that the Capitals lost. The Kings had a rough couple nights in Florida. They lost 3-0 Wednesday night to Florida. Then they lost 3-0 to the Lightning last night in Tampa, so they can't get out of Florida fast enough. Rantanen had a goal for Carolina. They beat Chicago 3-2. Flames beat the Ducks. Red Wings beat the Oilers in a shootout. How about Columbus going into the T-Mobile in Vegas?
On the puck line.
Tied at 1. Your boy, Cole Sillinger. Who? FanDuel Sportsnet, Ohio.
Now goes to Pietrangelo. Poke check, Kent Johnson. He's got separation. Here he is for the win. Kent Johnson in on goal. Save made. Rebound. Werenski. Moves Sillinger. He scores.
Oh, the guy's voice broke
Sillinger in overtime for the Jackets. 4 is the winning number tonight in Vegas.
Yeah, don't play that one for your wife as your voice broke up, you loser.
We told you yesterday how Brandon Saad gave up all that money to leave St. Louis. That's so that he could go sign with Vegas. So Saad's
they always
going to
get him,
there.
don't they? They always get him at the end for the run.
They get him all. Seattle beat the Sharks 6-2. Celebrini. I know the Sharks suck, so nobody's really paying attention. Celebrini's having a great rookie season. He's almost a point a game. 36 points in 41 games for the Sharks.
He roasted the Penguins the other night for the game winner.
He roasted the Penguins. NHL's growth prompts a significant salary cap increase. They're going to be going up like almost a full, like decent, talented player per year.
88 to 113?
Huge jump, and then 113 to 124, 113. Like, in the next 3 years, you're gonna be able to. Some of these teams are gonna be able to spend some serious money for some of these guys.
And
big
you're
jump
gonna
in the
see
cap.
A new commissioner in the NHL within 1 more year.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Is this the team this year under TJ Otzelberger that can get Iowa State to the promised land at a Final Four trip?
Auburn is trending towards being the #1 seed in the South. That means first and second round games in Lexington, and then Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games in Atlanta. I have a hard time believing that a team is going to be able to go to Atlanta and beat the Tigers.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You know, they always talk about geniuses in the NFL. This coach is a genius. That coach is a genius. We only have one genius at SportsGrid. It's Adam Kaplan, our NFL insider, who has covered the NFL for almost 30 years. You can follow him at Kaplan NFL. He's getting ready to join Uncle Futrelli in New Orleans on Bourbon Street for another year at the Radio Row at the Super Bowl with a magnificent week of plans and interviews and chaos. But we've got him today for a double shot, and he's already said that he's got an early lean for us on Bust a Cap in Yo Ass, which will not air until next week in Nolans. But he's going to give you an early lean, which is different than a tease, because a tease is a two-team teaser in our world. So he won't do teases. He'll do the early lean special today in the second segment on C2C this afternoon on a Friday. All right, let's start with the game itself. Here we go again. Round 2. It's the Eagles and Chiefs at the Superdome in Nolans.
That's right, Scott. So here we go. And we're not going to have to worry about slipping. Okay, remember 2 years ago when players from both teams were slipping due to the slickness of the grass, and that's not going to happen in this one. So we're going to be clean. It's you know, it's interesting, Scott. Most people don't know this, but this is the same site in the Superdome that the Eagles lost their first Super Bowl in 1981. They lost to the Raiders. So now they've got a chance to avenge that loss, but this time it's against the Chiefs. So let's get started with those Eagles. Now, Scott, both teams are practicing this week. Both teams are practicing 3 days. The Eagles, what they did is they gave their players off Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They practiced yesterday, today, and they're going to practice tomorrow before they fly to New Orleans on Sunday. The Chiefs practice Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Let's get started with the Eagles here, who right now are a 1.5-point dog. And the over-under, by the way, has dropped from 49.5 to 49, of course, depending on which book you're looking at. But the Eagles are getting healthier. Now, this story is unbelievable, Scott. Brandon Graham, who tore his left triceps, folks. If you don't know what that is, your triceps is your outer arm from your elbow to near the top of your shoulder. He tore it. He had surgery. Now, he got hurt in Week 12 at the Rams at SoFi Stadium, where he was having an amazing game. He was their third edge rusher, the first guy off the bench. And Scott, he told reporters he's done for the season. Well, guess what? In recent weeks, he kind of hinted on WIP in Philly and in his radio interviews that he thought if they got to the Super Bowl, he'd have a chance to play. And voila, here we go. He's getting some light work in. This is the test week for Brandon Graham, number 55. At 36 years old, Scott. What he's doing is this week he's testing it. He's trying to see what kind of power he has. You know, by the way, he's wearing a brace on his left elbow. So he's trying to see what kind of power he has, what kind of punch he has. And they'll make a decision off of that with what he'll do in practice next week when they start practicing next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in New Orleans. But this is amazing news, Scott. The typical surgery for left triceps or any triceps injury, quite frankly, when you have the repair, is 4 to 5 months where you get full healing. Obviously, here you're not getting full healing, but he kind of hinted to reporters, Scott, this week that it's working. So right now, he said he's working his way through it. But so far, it's working. I find it hard to believe, but you know what? I've learned in this business, never count a guy out. I remember covering the 2005 Super Bowl when Terrell Owens has come back from this ankle fracture. He came back 4 weeks to 6 weeks in advance, and he said he was about 75% of healing and effectiveness. And guess what? He had a great game against those Patriots.
Yeah, I'm a little sketchy on, if he should play and that, he's wearing this brace and that he thinks he's, ready to go and healed and all the rest when like a doctor like Dr. Chow would say it's 4 months, it's 5 months, and this guy's trying to pull this off. I'm a little leery of it. But what I really want to know is he going to retire? That's the question, because he's old and it's over and he's got all this other stuff going on, podcasts and everything else. Certainly he's opened his mouth up a lot, and it got him in trouble putting his foot in his mouth. What do you think he's going to do? And then talk about the Chiefs.
So BG, as we call him here in Philly, number 55, a first-round pick out of Michigan in 2010. Now, he announced before the season started that he was going to be retiring. This is it. But he's backed off in the last 4 to 6 weeks. This is before he knew that he might be able to play. What he did say was that, and I'm just going to paraphrase here, he wanted to see how the rehab went for this repair to that left triceps. But I look at it this way, Scott, knowing players as I do and just talking to them over the years about retirement, let's say they lose this game by 3. It's really close. He may change his mind and want to come back for one more year, try to win another ring. Remember, he won in 2017. As you know, the strip sack against Tom Brady. They needed it against Brady there in Minneapolis. But the bottom line is he's still leaning towards retirement, but he's not definitely going to do it. He's kind of hedged. I'll be honest with you. He's kind of hedged it. And I'm sure what happens here in this game next Sunday is going to go a long way to doing it. And he turns 37, Scott, in April. As we know, Scott, no one plays this late in their career. I mean, it's just remarkable what he's done. And you know what's interesting, Scott, in Philly? If you remember, the fans wanted Earl Thomas. They wanted Jason Pierre-Paul. They got neither. And who's the guy who's outlasted them all? One Brandon Graham.
All right, let's shift to the Chiefs.
Yep. And by the way, Scott, with the Chiefs here, now, one of the things, one of the underrated parts of their run yet again to try to win the first ever 3 in a row is the health of the football team. Scott, all 53 players, barring any kind of setbacks, will be available for this game next Sunday. That's a big reason why teams make it, Scott. Now, the Eagles have gotten healthier, by the way, late in the season. But the Chiefs have barely had players listed on injury reserve. The only player, Scott, key player who will not play in this game is Rashee Rice, who suffered an ACL injury very early in the season, so he won't be back to next season. But other than that, Scott, look, they made the trade for Hollywood Brown. He signed a 1-year contract that got hurt.
Right.
And look, they made the trade for DeAndre Hopkins. He's done a nice job. And then, look, when you look at this pass target group, they got Xavier Worthy from Carver's Bills. The Bills decided to trade a big chess piece. We said it during the draft for SportsGrid. We were sitting on the set. We could not understand, why would you do this? In my reporting on this story, the Bills did a lot of background on him. They decided they didn't want him. And you look at the problem with the Bills' passing game, despite scoring all those points, where are the explosive plays downfield? Well, the Chiefs, they're not that deep in their passing game. It's more short to intermediate. But Worthy is well ahead of schedule. He wasn't expected to play very much this season. Right now, he's their top receiver. He is so far ahead of schedule, Scott, and he's a gadget guy. You'll see them hand it off to him in the backfield. They throw it 10, 15 yards downfield, and he runs after the catch. He's been a great story, and I don't know where they'd be without him. He's an explosive player. And against Philly, this is going to be a fun matchup next weekend for him.
Let's talk about their running game. Everyone thinks it's Pacheco, but it really hasn't been.
How about this one? So this has been interesting. Kareem Hunt, who was a 3rd-round pick out of Toledo, I believe, in 2017 for the Chiefs. He's back, obviously, this season for them. And he's been a great story. In fact, Scott, what happens is Pacheco starts, but as we saw last week in particular, Hunt is the main ball carrier. So if you're doing player props, and we'll talk more about this next week when we're in Vegas, when we're at the Super Bowl together, but if you're going to be in Vegas putting money down, or you're going to do it online, the bottom line is you got to understand what roles are happening here. Pacheco may be the first guy in, but he's not the last guy. And Kareem Hunt, as you saw last week, looked great against those Bills, and he looks great. I'm a little surprised. He looks really, really good. And by the way, he's good in pass protection. He catches the ball well. He's a guy who will put up yards, and that's going to be a game when you look at the over-under total. I know that both defenses are playing very well, but the offenses are potent. And Kareem Hunt's a guy that could probably do better than you think.
When we come back, we'll talk to Adam about Jalen Hurts and how it's a fact. It looks like he's going to have a 6th different play caller offensively next year. It's unbelievable what he's had to deal with, yet he keeps coming through in the clutch. Here he is in another Super Bowl.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Is this the team this year under TJ Otzelberger that can get Iowa State to the promised land at a Final Four trip?
Auburn is trending towards being the number one seed in the South. That means first and second round games in Lexington, and then Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games in Atlanta. I have a hard time believing that a team is going to be able to go to Atlanta and beat the Tigers.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
He's an enormous Madison Keys fan. Adam Kaplan, coming off her win at the Australian Open, her first slam. It was a hell of a run she went on, beating Swiatek and the number one player in the world to win the Sabalenka, to win the Aussie, her first slam. That was crazy. All right, let's talk first about Kellen Moore. It's the worst kept secret in football now. It looks like he's got the Saints job, and they're just waiting until after the Super Bowl to announce it.
Yeah, and they cannot negotiate a deal. It's kind of like undercover. He's going to get the deal. He's going to take it. I've talked to two people close to him. He absolutely wants to be a head coach. And look, he called a heck of a game last week. He pulled out a lot of stuff. I mean, handing the ball off to Dallas Goedert, the Eagles tight end, and Devontae Smith. He called a great game against Washington. Now, here's the thing, Scott. You alluded to it before the break, and it's really important to note, and this has been part of Jalen Hurts' struggles at times. And Jalen talked about it before the season started. He's gone through a number of play callers, actually going back to his high school team, Scott. His dad was his high school coach. And if you look through it, remember now, Alabama, Oklahoma, and the Eagles had 9 or 10 play callers, and we're going to have another one. So let's look at it. 2020, Doug Peterson, his last year with the Eagles. Nick Sirianni did the first 7 games. Then in that 21 season, he handed off to Shane Steichen, and boy, did that thing take off. Steichen was the play caller during their Super Bowl 1 and 22. Then Steichen became the Colts head coach. Brian Johnson, who he's known since he was 10 years old. Yeah, exactly. Back in Black, man, one of my favorites.
There you go.
Yeah, I got you. Brian Johnson was his play caller, who's now in Washington, who's been a lifelong friend of Jalen's, and Kellen Moore this season. It's going to have somebody else next season. And the early intel I've gotten is they'll probably look outside the team. And oh, by the way, you should know this, Scott, for your listeners who are Eagles fans. The Eagles were going to actually hire Cliff Kingsbury. They wanted to, but they could not agree on the coaching staff. So he did a great job with the Commanders. He'll be back there. He's not going to be a head coach. And Moore, barring something highly unforeseen, is going to be the Saints head coach. And they're going to have another play caller. Look, Scott, if you look what happened after the 22 season, right? What happened to the Eagles? Okay, they fell apart, as you know, with that collapse, losing 6 out of 7. Well, they lost both play callers. Both became head coaches. That matters. When you have so many coaching changes, that's a problem.
So let's talk about the Senior Bowl and everything and where the Titans are. And it sounds to me like from your reporting that they have no clue yet what they're going to do, or at least they haven't shown any signs of it.
Right, but there are a lot of people around the league say if you're in the Titans spot, being what they need, first of all, they need to know the future of quarterback. You've got Brian Callahan in his second season who inherited Will Levis. You have a brand new front office and inherits Will Levis, who was a second-round pick, wildly inconsistent, very talented, but wildly inconsistent. And he just has not been good enough to be the future quarterback. And there's a saying in the National Football League, you never want to be picking this high, but when you do, if you don't know about your future quarterback, you figure it out. And Cam Ward is by far the clear-cut best quarterback for this draft. Now, if they don't want to go at quarterback, you've got Travis Hunter, who a lot of people think should be the first overall pick based on talent. He's the best player for this draft. Now, you and I talked about this weeks ago. My intel on this thing is very clear. Yes, he could play a wide receiver, but he's going to play cornerback most likely because it's a higher value position. The late Gil Brandt told me when he built his value board for the Cowboys, running all those drafts in the 70s and 80s, it's quarterback, left offensive tackle, cornerback are the top three value positions. That's why Hunter's going to be highly valued. And then Abdul Carter from Penn State, who's by far the best edge rusher of the draft. So those three players are the clear best players for this draft. They're clearly the highest valued, and that's pretty much it for the Titans. And they're a team that's in a total rebuild here. They need a lot of talent on both sides of the football, and they also have to figure out that quarterback position.
Yeah, listen, did you know that I used to do a show for like a year every week with Gil Brandt on Fox Sports Radio? Did you know? Yeah, I used to work with Gil. I loved him. He was great. What a guy. What a football man. What a football brain. He just was a blast to talk football with, like you are. He was an incredible guy. I love Gil Brandt without a doubt. Let's talk about guys that are having issues. Like, it did not go well for Milroe. Now, I have heard literally that the Steelers liked Milroe going into the Senior Bowl. Do they have the same opinion going out?
All right, so let me explain. This is my 24th Senior Bowl, and I had to learn the hard way. You got to be careful with just 3 practices, right? They're always Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Today they had a walkthrough. Tomorrow and Saturday is the game. Now, the game is different because it's cool. Yeah, it's tackle. You don't tackle in these practices. But the rotations are kind of weird. The practices, I'm told, for many years, are way more valuable. Not that the game isn't valuable, but the practices are more valuable because you get to work through a lot of things. Now, Jalen Milroe is very inconsistent. You see the arm strength, which is large. He's an over-the-top thrower, like Jalen Hurts, by the way, who was a former Alabama quarterback. And he had a lot of throws that were just off the mark. Every once in a while, Scott, you go, wow, that was a great throw. But it's really hard to get your timing down because for the most part, you're working with players you've never played with before or practiced with before. So you got to be careful of grading players hard. I know there's a number of because you're allowed to shoot video there if you're a fan or someone in the media. There are a number of throws where people putting video out there where the passes were off the mark. I get it. I was there. I saw it. You also had some good throws, but some of that's concerning. And you and I have talked about this. I know it's a pet peeve of yours, but Jalen Milroe is another quarterback who's got small hands, like Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett's in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and by the way, Kenny Pickett, that's where he wears gloves to get that traction. So that's going to be a problem for some NFL people, Scott. But he's not going in the first round. That's not going to happen. And Scott, as I told you weeks ago, there's still only 2 quarterbacks that are projected to go in the first round. Now, I know our friend Craig Mish on Newswire told me this week. He goes, look, everybody says that, and 4 to 5 go in the first round every year. He's right. And there's a quarterback we'll talk about in a minute who's not going to go the first round, but he's probably moved up through some good practices this week. But I'm telling you, man, it's not a good quarterback class.
So is that guy? I got 10 seconds. Is that guy Jackson Dart? And who's your early lean? Real quick.
Yep. Oh, well, Jackson Dart is the guy who's going to move up. He's had a good week out of Mississippi. We'll talk more about him in the future.
Who's your early lean?
Eagles.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Is this the team this year under T.J. Otzelberger that can get Iowa State to the promised land at a Final Four trip?
Auburn is trending towards being the #1 seed in the South. That means first and second round games in Lexington, and then Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games in Atlanta. I have a hard time believing that a team is going to be able to go to Atlanta and beat the Tigers.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Like, that should be out of bounds. That should be an illegal shot. Snedeker did it in 2019. Scheffler today, hitting from down in the rocks, down in the sand, down by the ocean. That should be OB. I don't care what anybody's. And then he hits a miracle 25-foot loft with a 56 wedge, and he puts it right out on the fairway. Now he's going to hit a perfect wedge right on the stick and part a hole. That is some bullshit.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they let them hit the ball down there underneath and right by the beach down there. Of course, that's a 25-foot high wall that goes across of rocks.
I mean, look at him climbing out of there. It's illegal.
That's the other thing, though. Now, we talk so much about pace of play and how long it's taking these guys. This is like a 20-minute ordeal. He's got to walk all the way back now, go on up. Should be out of bounds. That's it. Should have been out of bounds when he hit it down there. Lateral drop. That's it. Like, there shouldn't be, like, if it went in the water is what that should be. Nonsense.
It's terrible.
All right, leftovers, let's go. 4 hockey games tonight. Nashville is in Buffalo against the Sabres. Nashville, road favorites. Buffalo plus 110, 6.5. The two worst teams, I gave this to you yesterday, the two worst teams on the money line this year, the Predators and the Sabres.
Why do I have this sneaking suspicion that Nashville is going to beat them tonight and shove it off to Buffalo?
As long as it's over 6.5, that's fine with me, if they would like to go and do that. The Canucks are in Dallas against the Stars. Stars minus $1.82, plus 150 for the Canucks and a 5.5.
I love this Dallas team. I don't think they're going to win it by, a puck line bet. You got to do high risk with the $1.82. It's a lot of money. I don't like the price, but I'm on them.
Colorado has beaten St. Louis 6 of the last 7 times they've played. They're at the ball tonight, minus 192 for Colorado, plus 158 for St. Louis, and a 5.5.
I'll puck line it and get $1.40 if it hits.
And finally, the Blue Jackets, off a win in Vegas, are in Utah tonight, where they're heavy dogs. Utah minus 220, plus 180 for the Jackets, and a 5.5.
All right, so obviously you knew I was talking about Colorado there when I said I was going to puck line it. And then I'm going to do this again. I'm going to take Columbus with the $1.5 at minus $1.25. I don't have a problem with that price. The way they've been playing, usually it's at home that they play this well. But what they did last night stunned me. It's not going to be easy tonight. I don't really care about the altitude. They've been playing good hockey. I think Utah is really average. I've watched them. They're flat to me and like a flat soda.
Yesterday we mentioned that story about, I guess, this UFC fighter, Bryce Mitchell.
I gotta
his,
see this.
moronic comments. Here's a small piece of what Dana White had to say about Bryce Mitchell yesterday. Here we go.
I will say this. Out of all the dumb, ignorant I've heard in my life, this has to be the dumbest and most ignorant.
Last thing from me on this. When you spoke to Bryce about it and said, this is disgusting, did he have any sort of like, oh, I was just talking, or did he walk it back at all?
His thing was, I'm sorry if I put you guys in any position and, you know.
But not sorry for saying.
He's stupid. He's dumb. You can't fix dumb people. You know what I mean? When you have somebody that's really, really stupid, and that's who we're talking about here, what do? How do you talk sense to a dummy? You don't.
How can we save that clip? That's the greatest of ever. I actually have had my fair share of fights with Dana and wars with Dana and olive branches with Dana. We got to bring that one into the fold. Luke, put it in the trailer. We got to keep that one. That is one of the greatest quotes ever. How stupid.
Let me tell you, that's only 40 seconds of it. It went on for about 4 minutes of him destroying this guy. Colorado State football program is bringing in former Steelers general manager Kevin Colbert as a consultant. Kevin's got a job again.
He's gonna go to Fort Collins. What's next? He's gonna eat mushrooms. Ferrall finished. New Jersey ex-con allegedly stabbed his fiancée to death the day after he publicly proposed to her. I guess he wasn't interested in getting married, so he chopped her up. Arizona pastor hid cameras to record women using the church bathrooms. Be careful with the creepy pastors and priests. I'm telling you, man, just go in and light a candle. You'll be better off. That's creepy. Tattoo artist sparks outrage, inking a 9-year-old girl who asked for a portrait of Trump. I got an American flag. I asked for a 13 and got a 31. Bum, 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 bum. Offspring. GTD is next. Get my app. Search Ferrall. It's badass. You're going to love it and make money. We'll see you from New Orleans Monday at 3 on Testing Time.
Energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.